So I'd like to call the April 13th meeting of the Planning Commission to order, and we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Carter.
You stand, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any public comments this evening?
Yes, we do.
All right.
Heiko Peschel?
Oh,
Come on, what a surprise.
welcome.
Thank you. Heiko Peschel, 4 Perel Avenue, Foothill Ranch. And what I'd like to talk to you folks about tonight is it's been in the news a lot lately about the county and the city of Irvine duking it out over who gets to develop the area around the Great Park. Well, they're all planning a lot of development, but to the best of my knowledge, they're not planning anything in the way of infrastructure to help us out. Traffic in that part of the world right now is already very bad. For those of us in Lake Forest who want to get out of here and go west or north, it's not a fun thing. We have to work at it no matter what time of day we do it. Now, I'm old, I'm retired, I can choose my time to some extent. Not everybody else is in that same position. What I would like to see, now this is from my perspective, is better transportation between Lake Forest and Irvine, as in Portola, as in improving Irvine Boulevard. As much as it has been improved over the years, it certainly could use a lot more. And this would get traffic around most of the city of Irvine. Yes, if we run through the middle of the city of Irvine, our neighbors to the north are not going to be very happy. So let's see what we can do to help ourselves without hurting. The other thing is, and I know this is not within your realm, the traffic up in our part of the world is getting really bad because of the addition of Baker Ranch school children. We are talking about potentially putting more houses in back of City Hall over here at the Nakasi Brothers Nursery. I don't have a major objection to that. I would, though, if the school district doesn't plan on putting at least 2 new, if not 3 new schools in that area, an elementary, a middle-level school, and a high school. We only technically have 1 high school in Lake Forest, and that's El Toro. Trabuco Hills is technically in Mission Viejo. Anyway, thank you. And I'll
Promise. Thank you. Are there any other public comments? All right, we'll just then move right into the consent calendar. Is there a motion?
I move for approval. I second.
We'll vote. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, we are going to move right into our first item, which is item number 2.
Sorry. This is our first public hearing item. It's a site development permit. It's actually an amendment to a previously approved site development permit for a remodel, patio additions, and related site improvements to an existing restaurant. And Jennifer Mansour has a report this evening.
Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. This item is a site development permit for the existing Avilas El Ranchito restaurant located at the Forest Ridge Plaza. Avilas moved into the building in the 1990s and over the years has modified the original restaurant building and patio areas without city approvals, which is a zoning violation. In September of 2015, the Planning Commission approved the zoning violations by legalizing the existing outdoor patio areas and permitting building facade modifications that are in compliance with city regulations and design guidelines. Per the conditions of approval of the approved project, the restaurant owner was required to submit construction drawings to the building division in December of 2015 and to diligently participate in the plan check process. The applicant did submit plans to the building division and was given corrections. However, due to structural issues that came up during the plan check process and concerns about the cost of relocation of a transformer, the applicant proposed modifications to the approved plans. The restaurant owner is requesting 3 modifications to the project. Please keep in mind these are changes to the approved project from 2015, which have not been implemented. The The most significant modification is a preservation of the existing electrical transformer in its current location. This will reduce the area of the proposed outdoor dining area and eliminate a proposed storage area that was approved in 2015. The new proposal will provide the Southern California Edison required clearance area around the existing transformer and adds potted plants just outside this clearance area. The other two modifications are the replacement of a proposed tile roof, which is facing the parking lot, which is currently corrugated metal, to a maroon awning, and to modify the approved attached awning over the outdoor patio area to a slightly smaller freestanding maroon awning over a portion of the patio area. During the 2015 Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission added a condition of approval regarding proper storage of the restaurant's grease container. In response to this condition, the applicant is proposing to extend the existing trash enclosure to create a roof structure to store the grease container, which would be accessed via a walkway that leads directly to the parking lot. The proposed changes to the approved project are minor in nature and will not impact the overall aesthetics of the previously approved project. The project represents an aesthetic improvement over the currently unpermitted existing architecture of the building and is consistent with the intent of our citywide design guidelines. Staff has received one letter of concern regarding this project from one of the owners of the adjacent medical office building, which was provided with your report. Accordingly, staff recommends adopting the resolution approving this project with one revised condition, which was left on the purple sheet on the dais. The revised condition states that no obstructions are allowed in the Edison clearance area, to clarify that the potted plants that they are requesting are allowed because they're outside of that clearance area, only as shown on the approved plan. This resolution will rescind the original site development permit for the project. The restaurant owner and the architect for the project are in the audience tonight, and I would be happy to answer any questions you might have on this application. Thank you.
Okay, does anybody have any questions of Jennifer?
I have one.
Okay.
Jennifer, we had the letter that they were, concerned with the objects that were to be stored. Have we had any response from them with regard to what we're suggesting doing as far as modifying putting in that condition? Was there any other comments that have come forward with that?
From the adjacent property owner?
Yes.
I've had conversations with him,
Okay.
but nothing formally submitted or in writing.
Okay. But they're aware of what we're proposing to put in.
He was here earlier. I met with him on the property.
He's not here now.
Okay.
His wife needed him at home, so he didn't stay. But to answer your question, I think that he's convinced the three have been met. So anyway, we can get into that during further discussion. So I think probably the applicant is going to that. Any other questions? Well, I have a question. When we looked at this back in 2015, did we have a timeline on when we were going to receive construction plans?
So there was a condition of approval that they were supposed to submit construction plans within 3 months, which they did. And basically the condition said that they needed to diligently participate in the plan check process. So if we give them corrections, they need to resubmit and so forth. Because when you do this kind of process, you don't know how many times you're going to have corrections and how long, the corrections and the extent they'll be. So he did resubmit, but after he got corrections, he wanted to modify the plans, and so he started this amendment process through the site development permit.
And so what are the conditions of approval for a timeline for this particular?
So it would also be, we would give them 3 months, and I maintain the same conditions with a new date, so it would be July 13th, that they would have to submit construction drawings to start the plan check process to get a permit.
So if somebody submits the drawings by July 13th, is there any condition as to when they would start construction?
I believe there's a condition that says, let me double check, within a certain amount of period from obtaining the permit, that they need to start construction.
Okay.
So once they have approved plans through the city, which could take, depending on the plans that are submitted, but once they have approved plans, they have to get a permit within a certain amount of time.
Okay, all right, so maybe if anybody else has any questions, she'll look that up. I bet Hung Dow's probably already got it. Do you have the answer? No, she's looking.
So within 14 days of the approval of the construction drawings and all required agency approvals, the applicant shall get building permits.
So if all goes well on the 13th, then there might be groundbreaking by August 1st?
Potentially.
Potentially, unless there's agencies that want
Yeah.
the world.
Yes.
Okay. All right, well, that answers my questions. Does anybody else have any questions? All right, so I bet the applicants in the, we'll open up to speakers.
Sal Avila?
Good evening. I will, when we got to look at this from a different spectrum. You look at it from a construction side, I'm looking at it from a point of business side. And I deeply respect your thoughts and your feelings about the structures. And Jennifer and I have been working for a long time. But please, listen to how I looked at it and what I have done and how I look at my business. First of all, the business's values, the way we as business persons look at it, we look at it as ambience, and as a restaurants, in general, the ambience has to be very important. 90% of the restaurants, businesses, fail within the first 3 years. Why? Why do they fail? Well, you need 40 ingredients to be successful. One of the ingredients is your food has to be right, ambience has the second one, has to be right. And 3, cleanliness. 4th, service. You have to have those ingredients in order for you to be successful. If you're not, you're going to be part of those 90%. And you have to understand and satisfy your customer. Your customer is very, very valuable. And we have parents, as you saw, that we have been taught since we were little kids. We are now in the 50th-year anniversary on all the restaurants. My parents, and now I pass it on to the philosophy, I'll pass it on to my children and my employees. I teach them exactly what it is how much it costs to lose a customer. I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about, and so that you understand my point of view. For example, losing a customer is very costly. It's just not losing a customer. And then I tell that to my children and my grandchildren, and I tell that to my employees. Teach them. First of all, if one of my customers come to my restaurant, he's going to spend $450 a month. Let's say that. A lot of them spend more than that. $450 times 12. That's what I teach them. What does that come to? It comes to $5,400 a year. Now, if they're my customers for 10 years, what am I losing? $54,000. For the 20 years I have been in the restaurant over here in Lake Forest, every customer that I lose is costing me $180,000 in those 20 years. Now, you multiply 20 customers. How much am I losing a year? I mean, it's 20 in the term of the lease. I'm losing $2,160,000 on the lease by losing 20 customers. I mean, that's how I look at it. And that's through my business. And not only that, I have a book that says 50 powerful ideas you can use to keep your customers. I've been through school. I've been in the restaurant business. My parents taught me that. I teach that to my employees. The thing about it is El Ranchito has built since 20-some years ago. We have built an institution in Lake Forest. We have worked so hard on bringing all these customers in, regular customers, and you start feeling what they want. And that's what I have been doing, fulfilling their needs. Now, we don't just get 20. We have gained hundreds of regular customers in my restaurant. We have been very successful from then until now. We have hundreds and hundreds of new customers and regular customers. Why do we want to change something that is not broken? Why do we want to change the inside of the atmosphere, the ambience that is so important, that's bringing all these people into my restaurant? They love it. They care about it. To other people from their spectrum, it looks like junk. Other people look at it, well, that's no good. You got to change the awning. But I'm thinking, I don't want to lose millions of dollars. I'm looking at that long term. Avilas at Ranchito, Lake Forest, and my customers are the ones they're going to lose. We all going to lose by doing that. The restaurant's been there. I have never had any complaints on the handicap or anything. And people love the restaurant, and we're getting more, and our sales are going bigger and bigger, to the point that I'm opening up another restaurant here at Foothill Ranch, and the owners want me to get the bigger site because there's so many people going there. I don't have any problems with the building, but you're talking about an old building that's been there for a long, long time. And this, you start changing things around, I'm going to lose my customers. And we're all going to lose millions of dollars of that. 20, 30, I lose 40 customers. You're talking about 4, 5 more millions of dollars that I'll lose. That's just not a structural part of it. I'm just talking about the ambience that people love. Like I said, we were chosen for Lake Forest to be the #1 restaurant in all of Orange County this last year. The year before then, it was #2. A year before that, we still have #1 to be #1. Why do we want to change it? If you want me to move the outside, things in the outside, I'm happy with it. I'll do that. The problem is, why do I want to lose millions and millions of dollars when people love what they do and what they see and how we treat it? And I have been working so hard with my employees on making sure that I create that ambience that so many people think, wow, what is going on here? But they love it. And it took me 20 years to build it, and I do not want to lose it. I don't want to lose any customers, neither for you, for the state, for taxes. We're all going to lose. So I hope you take that into consideration. One of the things that I would like to do, if you don't mind, I would like, and I know some of you have been there, but I would like for you to walk into my restaurant, get the feeling of that, and I know that doing the awning is going to change a lot of things. It's going to change the ambience quite a bit. I'm going to lose customers because of that. I would like to invite you to go by and see it. Or let's take some time to really think about what we're doing and where we're at. And instead of being straight, it's got to be this way, let's look what we're going to lose. And if it's, I have never had any complaints for many customers, handicaps. I want to be flexible. I want to do, and I want the place to look great, but it's very successful right now. And it's getting bigger, and I'm not losing customers. I have no complaints. The only complaints I have is the city. I'm sorry to say that, but the only people that come to me and say, this is wrong, that is wrong, customers, you want to sign a petition? No. I said, we can work this out. I got another 20-year lease from Said. In that 20 years, I'm looking at, I can lose millions of dollars. My children's future is right there in tap. So I'm looking, how can I do this? I spend my time now going to Central America and helping people that need. I spend months going over there, helping them build their houses, working on the dental, working on things. That's what I want to spend the rest of my time doing. I want my children to grow in following my steps in the restaurant business and do the same thing. This is my thought. This is my perspective. Ambience, remember, ambience is #2 in the list of the ingredients. The first one is food. Second one is ambience. The third one is cleanliness. And the fourth one is service. Because of that, and people not knowing that, they lose. 90% of people, they go into the business, you can tell by people have gone in front of my restaurant, they open up business left and right, they go out of business because they don't know those ingredients that we're working so hard at.
Okay, thank you. Are there, maybe if you could just hold for a minute, are there any other speakers? Okay, would you mind sitting down and we're going to take the next speaker? But we'll probably call you back up again.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere.
Heiko Peschel.
Coincidence. Heiko Peschel, Foothill Ranch. It's a coincidence, but the first time I came to this group was the time when Avilas was up, and there was some objection by some of the business owners in the neighborhood to what he was doing, and I thought they more or less took care of it at the time, but because of certain things it had to be continued. Since then, he has opened up a restaurant in Foothill Ranch. He took over the old Mexican restaurant that was there, has done a marvelous job. We go there about 2 or 3 times a month, usually Taco Tuesday, some other time.
So you're like his $1 million customer.
If I'm going to live that long, yes. No, seriously, wife and I go there, and we go there with friends. We like to go out quite a bit, and there are probably somewhere between 6 and 10 restaurants in Lake Forest that we visit on a regular basis. Places like Brew, Dijo, Pepino's, Avilas, and a few others, the Inca Mamas, things like that. And this is one of the restaurants that I really like to go to. The food is good, as he says. The drinks are good. The ambiance, as he calls it, is very nice. We don't go down to the Lake Forest one very often because we have one close by. Anyway, I would be in favor of whatever Avilas would like to do. I could live with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peschel. All right. No more? Okay. Up here, want to have questions with the app? Yeah, okay.
So, just to be clear on whatever the outside designs that we have there, we're not changing the inside as much. All the stuff on the wall and all that stuff is staying. So basically, the inside will somewhat be the same. Is that?
That's what I want.
Yeah. But so these plans, and I don't see it on there, don't call for any basic changes on the inside.
It does. It does on the awning. Because they want us to put, well, we don't want to change anything the way it is inside now.
Right.
The outside, I can deal with it. I mean, I will comply, of course, I'm not deal with it, but I comply to that. I just don't want to take the atmosphere that people take pictures even outside. They're all constantly taking pictures of the restaurant because there's no such thing as an eclectic restaurant that might look junky to many people, but people appreciate something different and something that is not.
Well, it looks like there's something different on the wall. I can never
Exactly.
tell.
I got
It looks like
these
something
pictures.
different. It could be there, but I couldn't tell. It's
Yeah.
interesting to do that, yes. But, so, basically, the inside, there's not any major changes on the inside, or am I correct?
So inside the building, we don't regulate that, and we
Okay.
don't have the ability
Well,
to
yeah.
regulate that.
So once you get inside, it'll somewhat look the same.
Yeah, it's the outdoor patio area that I think he's speaking to.
Exactly.
And as submitted by Mr. Avila, what we have as a modification is to not require the awning. There was an awning that was attached to the building that was approved in 2015, to take off the corrugated metal that's there now and put up an awning that's attached to the building. Due to structural issues, because it's an older building, it would have been very expensive for them to try to attach it to the building, so they came up with a solution where they would have a freestanding awning, and that is what was submitted to the city, and that is what is we're discussing tonight.
Exactly.
And that's under staff recommendation for approval.
Yeah, as submitted by the applicant, which is in the plans he drew, and we're recommending approval of the plans that he has submitted, as they have been submitted.
Okay, so next question. Anybody? Tom?
So you're content with the plans that you've submitted, that will not destroy the ambience of your restaurant?
No, I think that putting in a self-standing awning is going to create instability. The winds are going to come down, and then when it rains, it's going to be problems. I can tell that. I had no other choice but to comply with what the city wanted to do. The way we have it now, there is nothing wrong with it. We don't have any problems. The winds, anything comes up, nothing happens. I'm afraid that if we change that with a self-standing awning, even though I comply to it because I have no other choice, I see it now that that we're going to have problems with it. And so why change? I got surfboards that I want me to do. I got things there that creates the ambience.
It kind of sounds like, to me, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe you guys can chime in, that the drawings that we have before us are now drawings that you really don't want us to approve.
It's drawings that I think that we should think about because of the winds, the rain.
Okay, but the answer to my question is the drawings that we have before us, you no longer want us, that's no longer your idea.
That's no longer my idea.
Okay, so then, in that case, we can't sit up here with a magic pen and change it.
I understand.
So, at this point, I'm going to refer to our Director of Development or our attorney. I think we're taking up everybody's time for something that you don't want.
It's not that I want, but my customers don't want.
Okay, I'm going to go back to, which would mean you don't want.
Which means whatever my customers.
No, let's not blame it on the customers because they're not here. But
I know they're
it's
not
your
here,
restaurant.
but
So-
tell me what they don't want.
But you just said that it was because of winds, so your customers don't understand winds. But okay,
Perhaps what I would suggest at this point in time, we've seen several sets of plans. Mr. Avila has turned in a set of plans. We reviewed it. We wrote the report and our recommendations. If he would now, I understand you want to come up with a new set of plans. This is no longer what you want to do.
his customers don't want him to do it.
But I think it would be most beneficial to let us see them, have a new set of plans, so that when we approve the plans, they're the ones that we want, and give us a chance to review them.
Well, the way that I have it now, I see no problem. The structure that I have for the awning.
Okay, well then let's answer that question. Excuse me, I'm going to interrupt you. So, what's wrong with what he has now?
So currently, he has tarps up above the area. He has corrugated metal on some parts, both of which do not meet our design guidelines, and neither of which got permits. I don't know that tarps need permits, but that the corrugated metal structures didn't receive permits. And in 2015, when we reviewed this, as part of legalizing the areas and making it meet the design guidelines, we worked with Sal and his architect, and we came up with a facade remodel that maintained some of the flair, if you will, that he wanted, but not. We got rid of the corrugated metal. We got rid of tarps. We got rid of bamboo. And it was.
We didn't get rid of it yet, but
Right.
the drawings will get
exactly,
rid of it.
Exactly,
Okay.
the drawings had that. And that was what he submitted in plans that he submitted to the Planning Commission. And the plans that we worked together to produce, those were in compliance. Staff supported it based on what he submitted, because we thought it was within the spirit and intent of our design guidelines.
So,
That makes sense?
I think what I heard Gail say is because what we have in front of us, we really can't say yes or no, which puts us back to nothing. Because you're not in compliance. And I hear tapping over there by Dave Carter, and I'm going to let him go.
Yeah, let me go. It sounds to me like we're talking about materials that are necessary to come up with one that you would be satisfied with and that would meet structural requirements and all that. I have to concur with you with regard to the ambiance. I think it's very unique having a restaurant of that texture, if you will, in the community. So my concern is the building materials must meet the structural component that's required. Okay. And it sounds to me as all we're talking about at this point in time is coming up with a material that would replace that awning, okay, which brings it into compliance, which is part of what we're trying to get to. One of the concerns I have, the city of Huntington Beach destroyed their downtown. I mean, people may like that, but I'm an old surf kid. I mean, I came to your restaurant when you actually brought lobster up from Baja that you caught on Saturday afternoon and served it that evening. So I understand what you're saying about the ambiance. It's a very unique structure and style, and I think that it's in our best interest to maintain it as much as we can. But I want to make sure that the materials that you're putting in there, you're comfortable with, and that we as a city are comfortable with, and that it's compliant with code. That's the primary concern from both parties. So I would like to suggest that possibly we bring this back and to a date specific, at which time ask staff to come up to where we can get a finalization as to what we're talking about with regard to the awning portion. Is it just the awning portion that you're concerned with? My concern is I don't want to lose the aesthetic value of that particular structure. I think it's unique. And believe me, there are very few unique restaurants in Southern California. I think you could say that we've got Urban Grill that's unique in one way, Brew's unique in a way, you're unique in a way, but there are very few that are unique. I don't want to lose that unique aspect of the property. The guidelines are guidelines, okay? And this adds to the aesthetic value, I believe, of that center. There are some issues that we got to resolve, but I really would like to suggest we bring this back to a date specific, that during which time we can hammer out what that item is with the awning. The only other concern I had was with the question I asked you about the opening for the Edison access, because of the letter was concerned with opening on that side. So if there's no problem with that, I think we've only got that awning area that's of concern. And Gail, what do you think it would take if we were to go date specific to bring it back? Because I'd like to get this thing taken care of.
I would agree with you. I think we're sharing the same concern. The applicant submitted a set of plans, and this evening he's saying he would rather do something else, and we don't have a set of plans that shows it. There's an awning attached to the building. There's awnings that go over the top of the patio. So there's an awning on the rear. So it's unclear to us what it is, which of these elements he doesn't want to include in his proposal. So we do need a set of plans so that when we approve something, we all understand what we're approving, and the adjacent neighbors and the other people in the center understand what we're approving. So our next meeting would be in May, approximately 4 weeks from today, but the report will be going out and becoming finalized. So it's really a matter of how long the applicant feels he needs to come up with these drawings that show us what it is he would now like to do.
Well,
If it's something that he can do in a week, Jennifer, perhaps we could be on the May agenda, but, it's getting something, because new plans are needed and a report needs to be written, I'm almost more comfortable with a June date.
Yeah, I understand, and there's no sense prematurely, we just
Right.
have to postpone it. So, do you have your architect here?
Yeah, he's
Mike,
present.
is 4 weeks adequate to come up with some solution?
but I just want to make sure that we're just talking about the material.
We don't know what you're talking about.
Yes, it's unclear to us what it is you don't want to
I
include.
think David understands what I'm talking about. And
He doesn't know particularly which awning you're talking about. I mean, it's all got to be
I understand
kind of
that.
architect language.
Yeah, that's his language, then I'll let him.
Good evening, Jerry, you're the architect.
Jerry, would you just
I'm-
mind
yes.
giving us your city residence?
I'm sorry, yes. It's Dana Point.
Thank you.
Is my office. My residence is San Juan Capistrano.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to get with the building official because there are more issues than just the awning. There's fire setback required on the one property line, so that a lot's going to be dependent upon my discussion with the building official.
So you would suggest that maybe June would be better than May?
June would be a better time, yes.
Okay. All right, so can we agree on June? All right, but before we close this, I'd just like to speak to Mr. Avila one more time.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Avila, I had the opportunity to visit with your neighbors.
Yes.
And your neighbors, which are the dentists in the condo association next to you. And their concern is they, too, are losing business. And they're losing business because you're not complying with the handicap access for that handicap parking space, and the area that should be cleared for Southern California Edison is not clear, and it's trashy looking. So, you know, we want to respect your want to keep your customers, but do you think it's important that you, too, respect your neighbors?
Of course. I just finished talking to the doctors, and he sent his son-in-law there, and I'm going to have him work it out so they all can be satisfied. I cleaned it. I took all those plants out because I just got back.
Right, but we talked about doing that in 2015, and it's still there. And you clean it, and then it comes back. And I noticed that when I was there, that there were 3 bicycles that appear to be your employees because the restaurant was not open for business. And I wonder, where are we going to park those bikes?
Well, as you notice that the transformers is got to have 8 feet forward.
Right.
We still got like 4 feet for us within that belongs to El Ranchito.
I don't think so. 4 feet between...
No. You have 3 feet here for the transformer and 3 feet on one side, and you have 8 feet long that we have to have in clearance.
You have to have that clear, so
Yes.
bikes can't go there. And
The bikes cannot go there, no.
Where were the bikes? So where are the bikes going?
There's one of the, and I talked to my manager today, and I showed him, I says, you are not allowed to have the bus boys or whoever they are parked it, because they don't want to get stolen. So you're not allowed to put them there. And right away today, they changed that, put a bike rack towards the back so they can park their bicycles 8 feet away from the place, and took all the plants out, and then we're going to do a different type of a folding doors so people do not see that side anyways. And so when Edison comes in, we can always pull it out automatically.
Well, I don't think you can ever have anything there, even if Edison comes. It has to be clear all the time.
It is.
All right. Well, if you can prove that.
I'll prove that. I can prove that.
Okay. The other concern that I had is that in the front on Muirlands, your wood ties that come across the front, which are just very cool, part of the ambience, but the wood ties on, if I'm looking at your building at Muirlands, on the right-hand side that jets back to in between the dental suite and your awning building here, is encroaching on what appears to be the property line for the condo next door. And I see in the drawings that your architect has removed those, and it looks like in the drawings that you will be more in compliance with the property line, which is a great thing, but right now you're encroaching, and you've been encroaching on that for some time. And so my concern is that if we go 2 more months, and now we're in, I think the first thing I saw was 2012, and Jennifer just told us that you haven't had the proper approvals for these additions that you've made to the property since 2002, did you say?
Probably since the 1990s.
Since the 1990s. So is there any way that you can, at least go talk to your neighbor?
I just finished talking to.
I know, I saw you. But did you tell him that you're going to make that right? I mean, is there a way that you can make that right now?
I can make that right now. Tomorrow I can start making it. I didn't know there was a problem.
You need a building permit for the retaining wall.
For the retaining wall.
Yes. Yeah. You would need to have it's in your plans to replace that wall with a low retaining wall, and I believe you would need a permit for that.
So that's not going to happen until this goes through again. And I think at least send the wife flowers or something. I mean, just to let them know, good neighbor, I'm going to work with you. I'm really sorry. It was brought to my attention that I'm now encroaching. I've been encroaching on your property. I didn't know.
I will do that. I was doing that right now.
Yeah.
I know he's very ill, and I understand
His
that.
wife is very ill, yes.
Yeah, and I understand the situation, and I don't want to infringe his property.
Because we don't want him to lose customers,
I don't
too.
want him to lose customers. I want everybody in the shopping center to gain customers. I even told them today, everybody in this shopping center should come back and put a small advertising on my property so that people know where you're at. You know, I'm willing to do the things that they want me to do, and then I'm not going to charge them anything for them to put their advertising in front of the many people that come to my restaurant. But I want them to know where they're at. So I'm willing to help as much as I can.
Great. All right, does anybody else have any? Robert, thank you for being patient.
Yeah, I do. I have a disclosure. Yesterday, at my request, I met with the applicant at his restaurant in order to go over the details, because it's hard to look at the awning and look at the report and the drawings, and so I could firsthand see what the conditions are. I want you to know I went out of my way to help you.
I understand.
I am surprised and underwhelmed by your 3-minute presentation on the millions of dollars you're losing. And you told us how you look at it. I'll tell you how I look at it. I like your restaurant. I've been in there. I understand it. It's one of a kind. You could call it an iconic landmark. You can. But from the outside, we have a community. People in the community think it's a landmark, and other people think it's an eyesore. And you mentioned that there was 4 cornerstones: food, ambience, cleanliness, and service. Well, I think you failed big time in number 3, cleanliness. And by that I mean cleanliness, repaired, maintenance. The place is run down, and I'm actually annoyed at your position based on what we talked about. Okay? So, I don't know how your customers are delighted with the idea that a high percent of your plants are dying, underwatered, and that's a carelessness that's gone on for months and months and months. And you have 2 big planters in the back where the electrical panel is. They've been dead for I don't know how long. It's just incredible neglect. And I don't want to embarrass you, but I thought you owned up to it when we talked. And part of the problem is that within your line management, there is no one person responsible for the maintenance and the welfare of the plant material that's there. All right? If you're going to bring this back, I've got some items that I think should be considered when it comes back. One is on the landscape plan, come back with a plan by some group that has credibility about what needs to be done with those plants. Okay? So a plant plan of some kind. All right? I know you have some big plants that are fantastic, but there's a lot of little plants that are dying and look terrible. Okay? The other thing is on the landscape plan, there's no discussion of an irrigation system for keeping that plant material watered. I'd like to see an irrigation system plan. Also, I need to confess that I'm upset about the idea that there's a history of noncompliance by you and your property. And it's been going on and on and on and on. Okay? And I'm at an end with this. It has to be done. All right? You have to bite the bullet. You were talking about how many millions of dollars you're making there, and you can't seem to spend a few thousand to correct some problems that are very obvious to all of us. The city has a responsibility to bring this building into compliance, and that's what the staff is trying to do. Okay. Furthermore, the condition of that grease bin is terrible. I mean, I can't think of the polite word. It's terrible. Its condition is terrible. You're supposed to have a catch curb around that. There's nothing there. It's just tremendous neglect. Okay? The other thing is, for the architect, on the floor plans, as you walk in the back entrance, the secondary entrance or exit, however you want to call it, the ramp, you have a row of seating areas there, a bar area where people sit and wait to get a table. That's not shown on the floor plan. So what is the intention of that, and why was it omitted? Okay. Next, you have a wrought iron gate at the rear. Okay. And we talked about the compliance for wheelchair access and that, and I think it's been resolved. Now, is that kept locked during the day, or why there's occupants in the restaurant?
Which one, the gated?
Yeah, the secondary, well, it's an exit.
Next, it's locked.
It's locked. Okay, do you need panic hardware on that gate? Because in the event of a fire, a kitchen fire in the middle of the area, some people are going to run out the front, some people are going to run out the back, and if you got that back gate locked, they're trapped in there.
Well, normally, if you're talking about the one next towards the entrance, the gate,
Well, yeah.
towards the entrance, we only close that when we come in, and we close it when we leave. That's the only time we close it.
So it's maintained open
It's maintained
at all
open
times?
all the time.
All right. Okay, and let's see, the container for the grass pen. That's about it. And I just want to add, I'm disappointed that you didn't grab the ball and run with it. Fix, I think, what are minor things that need to be fixed. Get it done. Make your peace with the city, and go forward and enjoy making money and serving your customers.
I totally agree with you. There are certain things that it's management. I have been undone for a long time. In today, I want a professional garden. I don't want the persons within my restaurant to be taking care of the plants, because that's not how you take care of plants. And starting tomorrow, I'm clearing all that up. I'm going to hire a professional to come in and redo the whole front. I take responsibility, and I think you're right. I think cleanliness, my mother says, Sal, remember, cleanliness is the most important thing in the restaurant. Somehow it went by. Sometimes we make decisions without really thinking and expect the other person to take care of it.
Let's make sure the minutes reflect that, and cleanliness, maintenance, and repair.
Yes.
I think your mother would have said that.
They said that, not to all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let me sit down. I think we'll bring it up here now.
Back up here.
Tom?
I guess my feeling is we had this discussion back in 2015. As far as I'm concerned, nothing has happened there. I think Mr. Avila has a pattern of bringing these plans up here, then nothing happens. And I guess I'm really frustrated by that whole situation. And we talked about the grease trap in 2015. I remember I made comments about that, and I've been by there pretty frequently, and nothing really has changed. So I have to agree with Mr. De Almeida on that one. I think that we need to see something more serious from you in terms of getting this done. I mean, if you're going to come back here every 6 months or every year and complain that you don't like the plan and try and buy more time, I think we're at the end of our patience with that. We need to see results. We're tired of it. Yeah, I'm happy to listen to you, but I'm just telling you, you've played this game for a long time. You've been doing it since 1990, and we're not going to tolerate it. So we want you to come back here with a schedule and tell us how you're going to get it done and when you're going to get it done and what you're going to do so that we can move on. I mean, that's really where I feel this is going. I've been to your restaurant. I love your food. I like the ambiance. I hope you're here for another 20 years. But please get this thing into compliance, because it's not. And the neighbors are complaining, and there are things about it that are a neighborhood nuisance. If you have a problem with your management, that's really on you. I'm sorry. You own the restaurant. It's yours. Understand, your family you have a number of restaurants. Your family owns a lot of restaurants in Orange County, and they're buying more. And I don't think their success is because they don't know how to run a restaurant, because I think they do. But if you got managers that can't cut it over there, well, I'm sorry, that falls back to you. And it does. And I really want you to be successful. I love you being here. You've been a great contribution to the community, but you've got to get this problem fixed. Thank you.
Okay, so we are unless anybody else has something else to say, I'm going to ask for a motion to continue.
Yes, would you like to leave the public hearing open?
Not until then, until June? What do you recommend? We're saying yes,
Yes, leave it open.
but we still want the motion.
Yes, yes, the motion would be to continue with the public hearing open, and so then when we come back in June.
We don't have to stay here till June on the microphones, do we?
No.
Okay, good. All right, then, yeah.
To a date specific, don't we have to have a specific date? Yes, we do.
It would be June.
June what?
Well, we could say the first or second meeting in June.
Okay, that would be
You see,
fine.
right now, we haven't amended the Muni Code, so you
that's
only
right.
have the one meeting in June, so that's probably the most appropriate.
All right.
The first.
June 8th.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Oh, I was just telling you it was June 8th, so you made the motion, right?
Did I make the motion? I thought
think-
you were in
No, I
process
just
of
was
making
giving you the
motion.
June 8th. I would never interrupt you.
Well-
Only interject a lot.
All right. I would like to
Motion by Commissioner Carter that we
Okay.
continue to,
to June 8th.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
motion seconded. Okay, let's vote. All right, so the motion carries. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to item 3 briefly.
Item 3 is a zoning code amendment to revise Title 9 and Title 11 of the Lake Forest Municipal Code to update existing definitions for use and uses for consistency with state law, as well as other minor code revisions. And we recommend that the Planning Commission continue this hearing. Did we have a date certain? To the May meeting, to the next meeting.
What if we decide we don't want to? We have no report, so we kind of have to, right?
Well, you could take it off calendar, then we'd have to re-advertise it. When we do,
Oh,
and I
okay.
guess those are really, either we continue to a date certain, or we have to re-advertise.
All right, I think Dave has a motion again.
I'd like to move staff's recommendation to a date specific, and that being May.
I'll second that.
Okay, let's vote. Motion carries. Congratulations, zoning code amendment. All right, so now, finally, we're going to move on to Part 4.
Okay, item 4, a site development permit, an amendment to an existing site development permit for plan sign program, and Jennifer Mansour also has the staff report for this item.
This item is an amendment to the site development permit and the plan sign program for the recreation facility, entry landscaping, and entry signage for the Parkside residential community that was approved in May of last year. As you may recall, Parkside is located on the corner of Rancho Parkway and Portola Parkway and includes 3 neighborhoods and the recreation center. The model homes for 2 of the neighborhoods are currently open to the public, and the model homes for the 3rd neighborhood will be opening next week. The applicant, Toll Brothers, is proposing to modify the entry walls and signage at the main entrance to the community on the corner of Rancho and Central Parkway, and also on the corner of Rancho and Portola. The modifications to the wall at the main entrance includes new pilasters and an increase in the size of the signage from 18 inches to 26 inches. The modifications proposed to the wall on Portola and Rancho include adding a limestone veneer, adding new pilasters, increasing the overall height of the wall, and increasing the signage from 18 inches to 32 inches. The proposed modifications will enhance the walls to the Parkside project, and the proposed increase in the size of the walls will effectively identify the residential neighborhood from the adjacent arterial streets and are proportional with the size of the walls. Accordingly, staff recommends adopting the resolution approving this project. This resolution will rescind the original site development permit and plan sign program and approve the new site development permit and plan sign program with the modifications to the sign and walls. The resolution includes the same conditions of approval from the original project. A representative from Toll Brothers is in the audience tonight, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions for Jennifer? The new mother, welcome back. No questions, so do we have any speakers?
Rachel Lynn?
Hi, Rachel. I'd like to disclose that Rachel and I met a couple days ago.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
Yeah, so we just feel that these upgrades will enhance our front entry and marketing corridor for our future residents. And we feel that the lettering as it stands now, it's just not in proportion to the walls. So, yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
I get a question.
Yeah.
The wall you have on Portola that you're proposing to raise to a straight linear line, is that going to be just there on the curved portion, or are you talking about raising the entire wall? Because it's on a tiered structure as you go, I believe it's west on Portola. If you come out onto Portola and you hang
I'm pretty sure it's across the entire wall.
and across the
Yeah.
entire wall. Okay.
On Rancho, not on Portola.
It's just on the entry, because the entry has a step down, goes across, and then steps down further.
Steps
It's
down
almost a
on the
three-foot
Rancho
step.
Parkway side, that
Okay.
part will be. But the wall that goes all the way
up.
down
That was my
Portola,
concern.
it's only on the corner.
Okay, so it's only on the corner.
Yeah.
Okay, that was what I was hoping you would say.
I think we're good.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Rachel.
you.
All right, so we will bring it back up here. Any discussion? Motion?
Good.
Make a motion to approve staff
Wait.
recommendation.
That's it. My only, comment, if I could, just a comment. I went out there, my initial concern was with the height of the lettering. Okay, I thought maybe 32 inches might be a little excessive, but having seen that corner, I remember we were talking about Joanne's at one point. We ended up at 36 inches, and 36 is just huge. 32 is much smaller, and my concern has been alleviated. I think it's going to be okay. The only other concern I have is when we're increasing to 26. I notice that hedge is going to have to be maintained at a lower deal, because that thing will disappear with your hedge. So it wouldn't make much difference what you put there. But I
We
think
can call Sal's landscaper.
I think they are more in proportion. My one concern might be the proportional aspect, because they're out of wrought iron and they're thin, so they have a tendency to diminish in size. Those are not lit or backlit whatsoever, are they? Okay. All right. That's all I got.
Motion to approve staff recommendation, bring it back up here.
Close the public hearing.
Close the public hearing.
Second emotion.
Let's vote. Thank you again, Toll Brothers. Congratulations.
That part done.
Oh, now this is why Carlo's here. Item number 5, we're going to give it to Carlo.
That's right, it's zoning code amendment, an ordinance amending chapters 2 and 9 of the Lake Forest Municipal Code. And Carlo Tomaino, assistant to the city manager, is here this evening with a report.
All right, thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission. So last month, the City Council discussed the potential of expanding the role of the Planning Commission to include parking and traffic-related items. At that meeting, the City Council reviewed a draft ordinance with amendments to Title II and Title IX of the Code and draft operating guidelines for the Planning and Traffic Commission. Under the operating guidelines, the Planning and Traffic Commission would be comprised of the 5 existing members of the Planning Commission and would meet twice per month, review planning, traffic, and parking-related items which would appear on the same agenda, also review City Council-directed items, development applications, reoccurring items, for example, traffic-related capital improvement projects, traffic signal synchronization projects, reports on traffic collisions, residential permit parking requests, street sweeping requests, and, of course, reconsideration of resident requests following staff assistance. The Planning and Traffic Commission could also recommend studies or inquiries to the City Council, who may allocate, as a majority of the City Council, city resources outside of the approved operating budget for further consideration. Staff support would be provided by the Development Services Department, Public Works Department, and the City Attorney's Office. This evening, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission adopt a resolution recommending to the City Council the proposed amendments to Title II and Title IX of the Code. Based on the Planning Commission's action this evening, staff would prepare for first reading the ordinance, a City Council resolution increasing the frequency of your meetings twice per month, and the draft operating guidelines for adoption by the City Council on May the 2nd. Given this timing, the first meeting of the Planning and Traffic Commission would take place in July. This concludes my presentation. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Wow. Good job.
Thank you.
Oh,
Actually, I do.
good.
Within the staff report, there's a list of guidelines for the commission to focus on. I think there's an oversight there. It would seem to me that part of our responsibility would need to be to look at potentially congested or would-be congested areas and study those sectors. We have a couple of situations that I'm familiar with. That's the intersection of Rockville and El Toro Road and Rockville Lake Forest. I think what we need to do, I thought the intent of the commission would be to try to anticipate or focus on existing problems and try to anticipate what problems would be coming along. And I know there's a lot of other things in there, the speeds and collisions and everything else, but I think what the citizens want us to do is to try to look at how that traffic is being managed. If we could add an item in there, if you read all the items, I think it's implied in there, but it's not stated. Thank you.
Sure.
I'm looking at the City Ordinance 902030, and under H, it says reviewing and advising the City Council on traffic engineering, transportation-related matters, including but not limited to traffic engineering rules, regulations, traffic control, related devices, speed limits, stopping, parking, or standing of vehicles, as well as vehicular and pedestrian safety. It seems to me that what you were talking about might fall under that category. That if we decide something, we could bring it up under that. It just was my thoughts on that.
And I thought that we were probably going to be getting our direction from the city council, because we don't really sit here as elected representatives of the citizens. So whether the city council does. And so how I read it, and Carlo, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the city council will basically be setting our agenda.
Yes, that is correct, Chair Fuentes. To Commissioner Dalmeda's question, on May 2nd, when we go back to the council, they're going to be generating a list of homework items, right, as a majority, because obviously the city council, they're the elected legislative body, and they have the authority to spend city dollars, which some of these studies would require. So depending on the magnitude of these studies, some are very small, some could be a lot of money. We need the City Council's direction in order to do that. So that's one way that happens, and on May 2nd, the City Council is going to generate a list. The staff is going to take that list and assign a budget number to each of those, bring that back to the City Council, have them adopt the budget. In addition, perhaps during your annual update to the council, if the Planning Commission or Planning and Traffic Commission at that point decides it desires to bring certain items to the City Council's attention, you could do that, and then the City Council could direct further work of the Planning and Traffic Commission.
And it'd be my understanding also that the Planning Traffic Commission would be able to, we had an issue that we thought should be brought forward even prior to the budget sessions, that we could, by consensus, ask that to be at least reviewed by council for possible action to direct us to do something. We could ask for something to be directed back to us. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if we encounter something that comes before us that we think needs to be addressed and it's not on our schedule, I think it's incumbent upon us then to ask council to direct us to do something.
Well, but maybe we should wait to see what they have.
Well, that's true, we can do that, but this is just one of those opportunities we had. The plan sign program, the development criteria and all of that was initiated by the commission. We asked council direct us to do that. They thought the design guidelines is what I was referring to. That wasn't originally on our agenda, and we thought it was something that would benefit, so we asked council if they would consider asking us to do it. So it's not beyond our capacity to ask them to direct something back to us. So I think that may answer your question with regard to that.
I think the action that the city council took in giving us this responsibility is important, and it's important that we produce success, that it ends up being a good idea. And I know that the council members determine what happens, and they may have their own areas of interest that they would like us to look at. One of the things I'm concerned with is that we don't appear to be a reactive body, that we actually be a proactive body, that we look and try to anticipate what's going on rather than just sit here and say the store is open and wait for a gentleman to come up and come to the podium and say, hey, there's a problem on H Street or something, and then we say, oh, okay, we're going to look at it. We ought to work with the staff. I think it's going to be difficult. I was hoping that maybe at the first meeting we could have a ramp up on things that we should know about traffic and traffic engineering, get the nomenclature correct, get the technical stuff, look at where the model is, and see when's the last time the model's been revised and that kind of stuff, and start off with a bang. And it could be, a public hearing where people came and they would hear the same stuff that we hear, and we actually get started with looking at this problem.
So if I may just, to respond to that question, Commissioner Dalmeda, the staff is actually preparing a series of discussion items in Public Works that will gear you up, right, and get you started on. It's the process that we engaged in with the CTAG. I'm sure Commissioner Armando remembers that process. Public Works provided a series of workshops, essentially, on different types of traffic and parking related issues. So that's definitely going to be part of the what I would call curriculum initially for the Planning and Traffic Commission, which I think will help to focus your efforts, because it will provide really valuable information. For example, the California Manual on Traffic Related Devices, that's it's a standard that's used in traffic engineering that helps guides a lot of the decisions that the folks in Public Works make. So it helps provide a lot of good information. So you're going to get a lot of that, I think, with the work that Public Works is beginning to prepare for the meetings.
With all due respect, I see that I would like to see a workshop where the public attends and there's an interaction between all of us, staff members and commissioners. We tend to operate off reports, and it's either in a report or it's not in the report. And I'd like for the public to see that they can have their thoughts, we can have our thoughts, we can have an interaction of what it is that we should be doing, and then we start, as opposed to just reacting to a staff report on an item or a briefing. I think we need to do something a little bit different than what we've done in the past. And those are my thoughts, and I'm probably the only one.
Didn't we do that with the CTAC?
If I could provide some information here, yeah, we do plan to do a lot of robust education for the commission, because traffic is a science. People have degrees, there are registered traffic engineers, and so we need to share that all with you. We've done some of that for the CTAG. We'll do it all. Members of the public are welcome to come to these meetings if they want to find out more about that, but that's absolutely essential. I also wanted to mention that the City Council did come up with guidelines for how the Commission, to try and formalize that role between the Commission and the Council, and we do have that once-a-year reporting. And so we report to the Council the types of things the Commission would like to study or wants more information, and then it feeds into our budget cycle, into our CIP process and budgeting, so it all comes together. So even as we stand right now, in May, we have a budget workshop with the Council for next year's budget, and obviously the budget for this type of activity is one of the things that they'll be looking at. So it would be difficult to, in the middle of a year, say, let's go study something new. It's not in the budget. We haven't planned for it. It's not a part of the work program. And so it's all part of a planning cycle. So I think we'll see it unfold in an orderly fashion. The general plan also gives us some unique opportunities for workshops, because we'll talk about constraints and opportunities in the community and have open forums. And I would, of course, imagine that the subject of traffic will come up. So having that opportunity for people to say, this is what I like about Lake Forest, this is what concerns me, let's look at this, we'll have an opportunity to have some of that. But I think the council, what we'll be doing at our next meeting with the council is they will be sharing all of their ideas as for the types of projects they envision this new body looking at. And amongst themselves, they need to prioritize and decide which ones are the most important, because there's many, many, many things. For example, the city's talking about, looking at areas in particular. It may not be perhaps timely at this particular time. We have in the CIP, in the proposed CIP, a program to update the city's traffic model. So that needs to be done. Our model needs to talk with the Octam model and Irvine's model. That needs to be done before you could do a focused look at traffic, at a particular location. So many factors go into deciding what should have priority and what should we fund. And so the council as a group, that's why the direction is coming from the top down, if that helps at all.
If I can respond to that, Gail, I completely understand. It's taken me 2 years to understand that. And what I'm talking about is a problem of perception, not so much the mechanics of how to do it. I mean, I have all kinds of confidence in what's going to happen and how it's going to be organized. But I want to make sure that the perception of the community is different. And I'll give you an example that happened tonight. A citizen who's still in the audience came to the podium and he spoke for 3 minutes and he talked about development in Irvine and how it might impact the city of Lake Forest. And when his 3 minutes were up, we said thank you and we went on with something else. And I don't want that to be the way that we do business. We didn't comment on it. We didn't respond to it.
Well, I think maybe our attorney could probably answer that for you, because it wasn't agendized. Oh, pardon me.
Okay. That I don't want that to happen. I want us to be able to, he threw us a pass and we didn't catch it. We just said, okay, thank you, and we went on with something else. All right? And he raised a good point, and we ignored it. But, of course, we're not the Traffic Commission yet. So I just want to make that point. Thank you.
Can I just interject on that? The opportune time to address specifically what you're talking about is in public, is in our comments. At that point in time, if there is an issue like what was brought before us, if you wanted to have an opportunity to address that, you could ask commission consensus to ask staff, to ask the council to address that and bring it back to us. That's the way it can be initiated. Now, it's not going to happen overnight, but at least it puts it on the agendized item. It's something we've taken action on. It's the opportunity we have to react to what was made in any public comment. The one concern I have with what we're going to encounter, and we will encounter it, we have, as applicants come before us, ingress, egress, okay, that will be regarding an application that is before us. What if we encounter, this is another example of what you're talking about, a traffic issue that comes up as a part of that particular development concept that should be addressed in conjunction with that. It will not be an agendized item. So somehow we've got to have a vehicle where we can bring that back to council saying we've approved an application, blah, 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 but it does have issues that need to be addressed from a traffic standpoint. So we'll have to have a vehicle to wrap that back around so at the next Planning Traffic Commission we could possibly address the issue that was presented to us as part of an application. So That's just the way I logically think it should work. Hopefully, we have concurrence on that. I think we do.
Well, Commissioners, one thing that I think we'll find helpful as we go forward in this process is we will have representatives from Public Works here. So each of the meetings, it's not Planning Commission one night, new HAP the next night. So we're meeting and talking about development applications and traffic on the same agendas, but we will have representatives from Public Works. And as was mentioned, if someone from the audience brings something up, you can address it at the end of the meeting under your comments, but we'll have Public Works here, and they could easily say, the CTAG did a study on that very issue. I can provide you a copy of that report. I mean, there's many, many things that the city is involved with and has done, and I think having someone here from Public Works, we could get the information that night. We could always do it the way we currently do it. And could you give us more information about that? And we could provide that in the next packet. But I think we'll find it helpful to have some representatives from Public Works at each of our meetings.
If I may, one other concern that I do have is we have an applicant comes before us, and there is an issue that comes up in traffic. It will not be an agendized item. A traffic component that may be indirectly or directly associated with the application before us, okay, we won't be able to discuss it because it is not agendized. So I think that's one thing we'll have to keep in mind as we address those. So those we may find at some point in time we have an application that we can't take action on because there's a component to it that we'll want to address as a joint session of both the planning and the traffic. Am I incorrect on that, Gail?
It's just, I think it's somewhat of a nuance, that it may be a traffic impact or something that, a problem or something that's taking place in that vicinity. But keep in mind that you can only, there are specific findings that you look at when you approve or deny a project. So one of them is, well, somebody else has created a problem down the road over there and the left-hand turn signal has nothing to do. There's no nexus to your project. So I think we'll have to carefully separate what's a traffic issue of a regional nature or a broader nature, and then it could go on that list that we bring to the council. We should do a focus study here, and how do we keep our development projects moving on if the development of this project does not have a direct nexus on that problem there. The problem may exist, and we'll want to talk about it, but we don't need to hold up an application because we've, have concern about something.
I'm not worried about holding up the application. It's the discussion of the item, okay, directly, okay, as a result of our discussion regarding applications for us. We will be, at that point in time, discussing an item that is not agendized. Perfect example would be when we were doing the Ross Center and we had the alignment of, when we were doing the Arbor on Rockfield. Remember the alignment of the intersection didn't line up, okay? And we couldn't address that through the application we had, okay? Traffic had to do that independent of us. But we would not, as a commission, if it were not agendized, be able to discuss the remedy for that. I don't think we can discuss it if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct, Commissioner. It's a Brown Act principle. It's a very rudimentary one. If it's not agendized, then this commission can't speak to it. I think that this commission looks at projects and as a whole looks at the parking and traffic issues that have a direct nexus, or have an impact from that project. But to the extent there's a project in a mile or two down the road that this project isn't necessarily affecting that traffic issue, even though it may be close, you're correct in that if it's not agendized for that night, then at some point I would have to chime in and say, hey, this isn't on the agenda.
I just want to make that point that we would have to make those separations between something that has a direct nexus to what we are discussing from the applicant and something that is adjacent to it or indirectly affected by. There's the one we couldn't discuss until it was agendized. And that would be our time then to introduce in our comments, okay, if we had an item that was causing a direct impact as a result of what we have been discussing, or we were unable to discuss it due to council's advice, it would behoove us then to agendize it on the next meeting or make the attempt to do so.
You know, typically, I know the CTAG is operated a little less formally than we are here, but typically when something like that might have been brought up at the end of the meeting, we might say, you know, ask staff, hey, could you look into this and check out all the ramifications, and the next meeting they can have a report, and then we can decide what to, you know, agendize it or whatever. But that was helpful, because we'd always, I would assume it'd be the same way. We'd have the public works director, and then the traffic, traffic engineer was here, so they can give you the you know, public works part of it, and then, you know, let's just put a signal here. Well, it's not quite as easy as that, and they can give us the things that we need to consider when we're, you know, somebody says put a speed bump or whatever. We can't do that, and this is why. But it gives us direction, and like I said, we could have them then do it to staff. I'm assuming we could do it in that way.
So just to clarify this point, because I think it's an important one, and I sense a strong desire by the Planning Commission, as Commissioner Delmena mentioned, to be responsive and reactive to these types of concerns. What would occur is that you have, as Gail mentioned, Ms. Ackerman mentioned, staff from Public Works here, right, who would be readily available to answer questions when they're raised by members of the public as it pertains to an item, or questions directly from the Planning and Traffic Commission. If those can be answered here this evening on the spot, they would be. If they required a very minimum amount of research, let's say less than an hour or so, and that could be brought back as a clarification, that would be fine. The only area in which we get into a little bit of a budgetary issue is if we're asking for large-scale, regional, citywide studies that have a pretty significant budgetary impact, right? And in that instance, the only legislative body that is authorized to make those decisions is the council, right? So what I would suggest to the Planning Commission is you have a policy by which a representative of the Planning Commission addresses the council once per year and makes possible suggestions. And I think that would occur sometime around the beginning of the calendar year, January. That would allow the City Council some time to consider possible suggestions on items that do have a budgetary impact and that could be folded into the future budget. So I think that's how I would recommend that you address the larger issues. The very small, nuanced issues, if you had a question that came up during discussion or you had a minor clarification to make, I'm confident that staff would be able to answer that either at the meeting or with a very small clarification at the next meeting.
Yeah. Follow-up comments. I'm glad to hear our comments. Looks like we are being proactive in anticipating how we're going to handle these things. There might be a solution, and the solution is that when you advertise an item, meaning there's an applicant with a specific project, well, we look at the project like we always have. And then also on the agenda, either that agenda, behind it, in front of it, next meeting or whatever, we have a study session on a particular problem. I'll give you an example, case in point. Recently we approved a hotel in the Gateway Center, and that was a site plan within a site. So all the discussion was on the impact of parking and a number of things, what happened within the site. Yet there's a very obvious problem is the left-hand turn movement into the site. And everybody that drives by there sees it. Everybody goes there, sees it. And yet when we were reviewing it, we couldn't deal with it. And we couldn't raise questions about it. And I can see why somebody could say it's unfair to say, hey, we have to restripe this, we have to do this, that, and the other as a condition of the approval of the hotel. But we have to have some leeway to say, look, okay, we see what the hotel is, the parking, the underground, the distribution of parking, all of this, that, and the other, the impact on the site. But then we need to look at the consequences of the turning movements, and the biggest concern is the turning into the center. And we need to have the ability to raise those issues and discuss it. And I can understand it's unfair to an applicant to do it on his dime. So somehow we have to figure out a way that we can actually discuss those issues.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't the traffic engineer look at something like that before the plan comes to us?
Not necessarily.
Well, yes, in that particular
In that
instance, they
instance,
looked
possibly.
at the impact of the hotel and the traffic that the hotel was generating. They weren't looking at how is this working out in the field today. They looked at, okay, if we put a hotel here and we replace the retail with this use, how does that change the traffic and what impact will that have? Will that be more of an impact or less of an impact? That's kind of a difficult example, because we did in the staff report talk about changes to the signal timing and the lead lag and the left turn movement and how, what was going to be done. So there was information about that. But in that case, I think what we're talking about is you can't take an application for a hotel and say, I'm displeased with something else over here, and hold up the hotel person and say, I want you to go study something about this shopping center when you're proposing a hotel. So I understand the frustration, because sometimes things are intertwined, and sometimes it could be just a new application that happens to be located in close proximity to someplace that you have a concern about traffic, and it's not that one's impacting the other, but that's a quandary.
Gail can attest to this. I used to have a great issue when we would have site development plans, and we'd have drainage, and as soon as we got it off the parcel, it was no longer a problem. Now, it took years, before that became a primary issue. Now we got retention basins on all of our site developments. But that was something we could not address as a commission, which was very frustrating, because you knew there was an impact, but it was downstream, literally. And it took quite some time, but now that particular problem has, come full circle and it's taken care of itself. But this is, I think, precisely what you identified is something that we would have to at least bring to the attention of council somehow. It's up to them to, evaluate whether they want us to undertake it as a commission. But I think it's incumbent upon us as part of that process to ensure that it does get to staff, back to staff, to council, and hopefully back to us at some point in time. But we'll do our part, and that's just incumbent on us.
I just had one procedural question. It looks like now by merging us as two different commissions in a sense, how do you see it working between the traffic department and the planning department in terms of how you figure out the agenda and how that tends to work and how the reporting system works? Because in effect, we're not working with two different departments. And how do you figure we're going to sort that out?
Well, we've actually had some discussions amongst the departments, and it will be a coordinated effort. And I think what we're looking at is kind of a master calendar, because there's we're going to have two very important pieces of information at the onset. We're going to have that prioritization list from the City Council, as well as a budget amount established in the next fiscal year budget, so we know what we're working with, and we know we have a number of topics that we all need to come up to speed on. Public Works and people that participated on the CTAG are going to be very familiar. We also listed in this report a number of things that the Commission should do. The new Traffic and Transportation Commission, new traffic-related things that they'd look at on an annual basis. So we're basically going to take our calendar, look at it, and kind of pre-populate things like on a 6-month to 1-year basis, because we're going to manage the calendar. So it's a joint effort between the two departments. But I think the traffic engineering function in the city has had a good dry run with the CTAG in establishing agendas and how things are going to work. We have some things that will come up if we have a request for permit parking. We don't know until someone files that request, and that would move up. But we'll manage the agenda together to make sure that all of our planning projects move forward, and that we don't have a super swamped agenda. We'll probably learn a lot along the way, but I think it's cool.
Well, one of my concerns is the calendar, if we start in July, because it looks like if it's approved in June, that we would then start in July. And I know I was speaking to Commissioner Mark, and he is gone the first month of July. I'm gone, or the second Thursday in July. I'm gone the fourth Thursday in July. And since July is kind of our summer vacation month, I was just curious if maybe we wanted to discuss maybe starting this in August or September, because it is kind of quick notice to throw those extra meetings in during vacation travel time. Because I have been blogged about missing meetings that were previously scheduled before I knew about them, and it's not fun. And we happen to have a councilman who does that, and so I just wanted to ask if anybody's interested in maybe asking the council if we can start in the fall as opposed to the summer.
From my vantage point, I have full confidence in the group that would be here. One of us is absent. There are 4 here to...
Confidence, yes, but it's the training that I think we might be missing out on.
Well, training, I guess, is the old adage, is on your dime, I guess, but, you know,
But if
I'm being facetious, I really am. I'm going to be gone for a week in August. Okay.
Oh,
So,
during a commission,
well, as far as I know.
which is why I said maybe September.
Yeah.
So,
Maybe we could arrange a meeting for the training in indoctrination or introduction, aside from our normal meeting, at a time when all 5 of us can do it, and we'll start that way.
not asking for more meetings.
Yeah, Commissioners, the staff will be more than happy to meet with any commissioner who had vacation plans. We'll give you a private training session, and we could certainly do that if anyone misses one of the topics. And I don't think it's just given how we worked with the CTAG, it's probably more than one meeting to get an understanding of all of the concepts that underlie the traffic engineering function.
It seems to me this training process probably could take a year to get all this stuff done. I mean, to all the things you're talking about, it could take a long time.
Well, with the CTAG, it didn't take a year because they needed to come up to speed on the realities of the traffic engineering profession, and then be able to apply that as they looked at new things. So we hope we won't be training you for an entire year, but there may be subjects that come up along the way with a new issue that arises, and we want to do a little bit of training on a new topic.
So how long do you think this training will last? If, as you speculated right now, are you talking about 3 months, 4 months, 5 months?
Well, keep in mind, the Planning Commission will now go to 2 meetings a month. And so the agendas will be blended. So we could do training at each Planning Commission meeting. Not 3 hours of training, but, an hour of visiting several topics and answering questions. And so I think 2 months, that would give us 4 times to have discussions centered around various topics. And again, if any commissioner misses any of those meetings, we'll sit down with them and give them and have some private.
Well, that answers my question. Thank you. I think we maybe want to go to public speakers.
Heiko Peschel.
And first of all, Mr. Carter, congratulations, by the way. I saw something on Facebook recently having your name in it. But I've been a member of the Architecture Committee in Foothill Ranch for a bunch of years now. And a few years ago, we tried to do something about our parking and our traffic and all that sort of stuff. And they pretty much almost hung us. So I'm expecting you to get a lot more traffic here, a lot more people coming with their desires, wants, and wishes. A couple minor comments. Saddleback Ranch Road was a traffic fiasco when it was redesigned. It's still not what it was once before. Yes, they've reduced the speed on it, and yes, there's a school on Saddleback Ranch Road, an elementary school that we used to patrol, and or they still do, I don't. But what they did in their changing of Saddleback Ranch Road, in my opinion, was just not the right thing to do. You can put a reasonable speed limit on it, enforce it, and work it that way, but making people jump back and forth going down a street is not my idea of a safe thing. The other thing is Arbor Center. The exit from the Arbor Center across over towards Smart and Final has 2 left turn lanes and 1 lane for straight and right turn traffic. If you took one of those 2 left turn lanes out and made it a straight lane and one for the one on the right for right turn, you'd have a much smoother flow of traffic through that. You're going to see all of that coming at you. And Mr. Carter, in reference to planned things, when you do a site plan like they did for the Pepino's Hotel neighborhood down there, if you make it a requirement that they include anticipated traffic and what is necessary to make the traffic work better. We, in hindsight, have figured out that, yes, you need a longer left turn lane. You could possibly even have 2 left turn lanes, except it's 1 entrance. So let me leave it at this. It's going to be a learning experience for all of us, and I'm hoping to come back on a regular basis. Thank you. Owen, Robert, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Anybody? Guess not. No. All right, we'll bring it back up here. And I'm looking for closing the public hearing and a motion, unless we want to say something more.
What hearing are we closing?
We've been
The agendized
agenda
item
thing.
actually was to amend the
Okay,
code.
fine.
So this was a public hearing.
Okay, I was taking it as a discussion item, so that's why I did. I move that we go ahead and close and approve.
motion to approve.
Motion to approve, yes.
I'll second it.
Okay, let's vote. Well, congratulations. Motion carries. All right, so now we are going to, is it city attorney?
No comment, thank you.
We're switching it up today? City attorney?
No comment, thank you.
Even if you go first?
Like
Director's
first.
comments?
No comment this evening.
Assistant city manager comments?
I have nothing further this evening.
Peggy comments? Okay. Let's start with the Planning Commission comments then. I'll go first and just say, Heiko, if you felt I was ignoring you, I'm glad, because I know you say those things all the time and we never comment to you because you know they're not agendized. So anyway, thank you very much for your, you're our best supporter. You really are, and we really appreciate you being here.
You better hope I stick around.
There you go. And I wish everybody a happy and holy Easter and Passover.
Now and what you're going to be doing is great. Okay?
Great.
And I'm in favor.
Great. And I wish everybody a happy and holy Easter, and I hope Passover was as well.
Great conversation tonight, great discussion. I'm glad to see everybody getting and jumping in on it. Other than that, I have no further comment. Other than happy Easter and happy holidays, everybody. Be safe.
I'd like to wish everybody a happy holiday, and again, thank the staff for a very fine job, and appreciate all the work you're doing with this combination, Planning Commission, Traffic Commission thing. I think it'll work out. We'll just have to learn together and be patient and be flexible.
Just a little word on the training, so to speak. They're very good, and they'll get you up to speed in a quick hurry. But also, you'll have the Public Works Director here, and typically the traffic people. So if something comes up, you can always defer to them, and they'll bring you up to speed. So I wouldn't be concerned about the training thing. You'll be up to speed in no time. So that's my comment.
I want to thank Jennifer, who's not here. She's probably taking care of a baby now. I interacted with her quite a bit on one of these projects, and she did a great job. And it was a difficult situation, a lot of arm wrestling. She did a very good job, and she commented to me that she came to work here 11 years ago, and that was one of the first projects she worked on. So Mr. Sal is sort of a master of noncompliance.
All right, with that, we will adjourn until the May 11th meeting. Thank you.